One of the things I forgot to mention, the big word in my 3 minutes was religion. And religion and culture and how interlinked they are and how much they are a basis for violence against women. I'm sure you know that there are many practices, traditional practices, whether they be honor killings or female genital cutting, which are often have a religious basis and are confused sometimes as to whether they have a religious basis or not. But I want to put it out there that there is a huge linkage between violence against women and religion. And also in terms of when we talk about war, which is what you two are focusing on, militarism, we should also keep in mind that religion obviously is a basis for war, coming from the Crusades to where we sit here today. And those things have to be addressed at the most meta level and the most political level. And I think that really comes about from awareness and political analysis and understanding of how things happen in the world. I want to tell you some of the broader strategies that UNFPA, which is the United Nations Women's Healthcare Agency, has used to deal with the issues of violence against women in everyday society and that happens every day and not just in times of war and militarism. There are some known strategies. Obviously, our goal always is the empowerment and equality of women. Things that have worked very successfully is to establish coalitions, working with nonprofits, because obviously our goal always is to get increased awareness of the problem. One of the biggest problems we face everywhere is that people don't know the problems of women, whether they be vulnerable women or not. And you have to get people to buy into that and agree with you on that. One of the interesting things on the issue of violence, and something that I said I would bring up, is that when you view violence against women as a cultural matter, you have to engage cultural leaders and actually even religious leaders. It is a very sensitive terrain and a very difficult one to do. But when you are talking about, for example, this has happened repeatedly when it came to female genital cutting or mutilation, a lot of people practices, it's actually the numbers are 100 to 140 million women and girls in the world. And you have to talk to religious leaders who say, well, this is not a religious practice. It's not mandated by our culture and our religion. Some of you may have heard of the Al-Azhar University in Egypt, which is a very famous religious institution that reinterprets and interprets Islamic law and issued a statement saying that this is not required by Islam. That kind of work, that kind of coalition building is hugely impactful in this area. And I know it's something that is often difficult and politically challenging for feminists because we understand religion as a cause of many of our problems, and engaging religious leaders is not perhaps the first thing that comes to our mind. But when you are talking about practices like this, we do have to do that. Obviously, when it comes to issues like forced marriage, particularly early marriage, again, we're talking about culture, but we are talking there about empowerment of girls. The push is to keep girls in secondary education, to provide them with other economic means of support, in addition to providing them with the ability to get themselves out of the difficult situation. I've seen programs in Ethiopia where the problem is in Ethiopia, young girls get married sometimes as early as 4, 5, because these are betrothals, you know, family relationships. And they are taken out of their home, they move somewhere else, which is something that they don't know how to deal with. And so we went to see a program that was supported by UNFPA where the young girls, there were girls ranging from 6 to 13 who were sort of in kind of a quasi-orphanage, except that here they were being provided with education and what they said life training skills. So they were being taught to read. They were almost all domestic workers because they had run away from their homes and marriages they didn't want to be in, and they go to the big city to find jobs, but they're 6, 7, 10, 11-year-olds. Where are they going to find jobs? How are they going to really do this? They have to learn how to read, write, and then try to get themselves out of being domestic workers also where they're beaten and again subjected to violence, and then try to get placement in jobs, and it's a huge challenge. I'm not going to say that empowering young girls is easy, or I'm not going to say that. What I am going to say is that we need the commitment, we need the understanding to make these things happen. And I'm happy to talk about them in other issues. I didn't get into it because I was trying to be specific about the strategies that we need to employ.
Great. Terrific. Those are really very helpful. The unlikely alliances is really a very important issue, and it strikes me it's similar to your conversation, Joanne, or your point about talking to the military. And when we start to talk to them about what they're doing on the ground. Radhika, let's move on to you now, because you do have some interesting solutions here, too.
I don't know. Can you hear me?
No.
Maybe this mic's off?
I think it's off.
Pass this.
Okay, try this one.
No, it's off.
This is on.
Well, this one's on.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have solutions, but, suggestions for actions. I mean, I don't, do all of you know about the 16 Days campaign of the Global Center? Some? Okay. 20 years ago, it won't take that long. 20 years ago, a group of women got together at the Center for Women's Global Leadership at Rutgers University and started a campaign to bring attention to the issues of violence against women. One part of that work that started 20 years ago was the work that happened at the Vienna Conference on Human Rights and other conferences. But the other part was the launch of a global campaign of 16 days of activism on gender violence. For the last, and actually many people now, it's been such a successful campaign that most people don't know that it started at the Center for Women's Global Leadership. And so the success of our campaign has been that for at least for those 16 days, there's global attention from all corners, and I think we have, the last campaign last year, there were 1,200 partners around the world who participated in the campaign that told us that they did it. And there were more that did it that didn't quite tell us, and also we're working with UNIFEM, Say No campaign, and so it's all integrated. So that's the 16 Days campaign. And so this year, partly because I think of just the issues of war, militarism, violence that have been taking place, we decided that we're going to increase the focus. I mean, we're still going to, the groups that have worked with us over the years on different campaigns are going to continue, but we're now going to start this new focus of the 16 days to look at militarism and gender violence. And what we've done is, and I think my colleagues are handing out our theme announcement, and I have a few more here in case someone wants it, which we launched last week. And what we want to do is, for at least 3 to 5 years, right? I mean, this is not just a one-year campaign, but 3 to 5 years, we're going to try to increase the kind of activism and focus on the relationship between militarism and gender violence. And the way the campaign works is that we sort of send out the theme announcement, and you'll see on the back of it, we have many issues that we thought could be focused on as part of the theme. And I'll read a few of them out to you. But we're actually looking for people to come up with their own themes. And the one thing that we want to really try and do, in the past we would put a calendar together so that everybody knew that they were part of this global campaign, so that people could see around the world what everyone else is doing. Starting this year, we're very intent on not just sort of looking at what are the campaign strategies, but what are the actual issues that women on the ground want to work on, because maybe we don't know all of them. And capture those stories from the ground up over the next 3 years, right, globally, from grassroots organizations, and try to then document in a holistic way a feminist critique of militarism, right? Because I think we all have parts and bits. I mean, I think the one that gets the most amount of focus.
Is that someone's phone? Needless to say, if you could turn the cell phones off, that would be great, or put them on vibrate. Yes, go on.
I just lost my train of thought.
I'm so sorry.
That's okay. And I think Yeah, so what we want to do is to look at various issues. So let me read just a few of them. We have about 20 of them, and we're looking to have people add to them. Is to look at what genuine security means, right? The idea of security has been taken up by the militarized sense of security, but what does genuine security and gender justice mean? What are the economic consequences of war? I already mentioned the issues of looking at budgets, but I think one of the things about looking at budgets, and this is my other head as being also an economist, is I think when we do gender budgets, I think we often wait for the budget to come out and then look at a gender analysis of a budget that comes out. And I think we really need to start looking at macroeconomic policy as to how budgets are constructed and what are the issues that are put into play in order for budgets to be constructed. What are the kind of monetary and fiscal policies that are being used, and what are the gender implications of those policies? And so I think we need to go beyond just looking at budgets, but to really look at economic policy and what that means. And sadly, you know, our economic policy is very much tied to our imperialist strategies, you know, I mean, in the U.S. in particular. I think that's a word that didn't come up yet, and I think we need to put that out there, you know, that this militarism, the expenditure and all of this is about sort of an imperialist strategy around the world, and we need to be very careful about how violence against women is not used as a part of an imperialist strategy, and that we need to be very careful as to how we as feminists play you know, an anti-violence campaign, but not fall into, you know, the U.S. going and invading Afghanistan to liberate their women, and to be very clear what it is that they're doing. Again, proliferation of small arms and the role of arms in domestic violence, reparations, healing, and reconciliation, the global production and sale of arms, domestic violence committed by members of the military, sexual violence and sexual slavery in conflict situations, women and girl combatants.
Radhika, I wonder if we
I'll
could...
just do two more.
Okay, just two more. So, because I do want to give the audience a chance to ask just a few
Just two more.
questions. Okay.
Two more, communal violence and riots, because I think we have to make sure that in many countries, I mean, when we did this open dialogue at CSW, people said, well, we don't have war in our country. And does that mean that militarism doesn't pertain to us? I think what we need to look at the way in which the ideology of militarism perpetuates all places, and you don't have to actually be in war in order to deal with the issues of violence and militarism.
Thank you. That's really good. I mean, it's incredible listening to this panel and the last panel to think of all the ways violence against women becomes an effect of policies and practices that the world engages in. It's horrible. It's incredible.